Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of The Great Retention with Camber Parker, sponsored by the Yoprono. I'm Camber, your young professional expert and founder of the Yoprono, where we bring you the answers you need to know about how to hire and retain the best talent, starting with the young professionals you work with. There's a lot of young professional fish in the sea, as I like to say, but how do you catch them? And what do you do once you reel them in? That's where we come in. Today, I am so excited to have not one, but 2 guests with me. Please welcome Angela Gardner and Christy Powell to the show, coming to us live from Greenville, South Carolina. These 2 women are the masterminds behind Women Talk Construction and Women Confidence Builders, 2 organizations that we will definitely talk more about in depth today. They're also integral players in their roles in their respective fields. As Director of Business Development at Hill Electric, Angela is an expert at getting plugged in with her community and works hard to engage the younger generation of the workforce. At 84 Lumber, where Christy manages the Women Business Enterprise, she travels across the country to speak and encourage growth and support of women's business initiatives. They recently judged for the Association of Builders and Contractors DE&I Excellence Awards, which for those of you who are not in their field, this is a big deal, guys. So we want to hear more about that later. And I invited them on the show today because they know a thing or two about the next generation of leaders in their efforts, and because their work places a very strong emphasis on diversity and inclusion as they continue to lean in, all in, for the support of women and diversity in age. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we're so glad you're here. And I would be remiss not to mention here that your own podcast, which I want to hear more about today, we'll ask about that in a little bit. Your own podcast, the sponsors and people that are involved in that, they've seen huge results from the last year of doing this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about that podcast just so we can jump in. I want people to, we'll make sure we link that to our listeners, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay. You want to start or you want me to start? So I think one of the things that we really need to talk about for Women Talk Construction is we really wanted to highlight what women were doing in all roles. Mm-hmm. And by sharing stories, we're teaching others how easy it is to do what we do, right?
See it and believe it, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I love that. And let's take a step back because I do want people to know a little bit more about you. I know that I had just a short period of time to give that intro, but just so the listeners and watchers of the show can get a feel for who you guys are, tell us a little bit more about you before we dive into the details of this episode.
So a little bit about me. I was boots on the ground for 27 years in the field in construction and felt like I was on an island all by myself. And didn't really have a lot of women in my life. And when I took this role on as the Women Business Enterprise lead, I learned that I had to talk like a girl and walk like a girl and dress like a girl. And fortunately, Angela and I connected right away. Before I even took the role, I asked for her advice on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. That's how we became friends.
I love that. Wait, I don't know if I knew that.
You didn't know that?
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah.
I was scared. Like, I had not been around any women, and I was in the field, and I had seen her on LinkedIn. And, so my LinkedIn profile was me with blood on my face from killing a deer. That's how old it was. Like, it was my first year.
I remember that.
Yeah. So,
and some camo on.
Yeah. I had
Nice,
camo on the whole
fitting.
9 yards.
Yeah.
I had a deer head, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. So, needless to say, LinkedIn wasn't my place, but I had
I might
just
have mentioned
a few
to change
times
that,
I'd been
Yeah, but
there.
you met a friend.
Yes. So I met a friend. Anyway, my point was I wasn't on LinkedIn much, but I saw her enough to know that she might be a great lady to reach out to help me make a decision, right? Mm-hmm. Like, should I take this job or should I stay here where I'm at? And she did. And we became instant friends. And, one of the things she said to me that I'll never forget is, go for it. Why not? Right? Mm-hmm. And that's all it took. So anyway, when I did, and I found out that there were many other women and many minorities out there that felt exactly the same way I did, all alone on an island, I decided that I wanted to do something about it. And then Angela and I started talking about sharing stories, and that's how Women Talk
Well, we heard
Construction.
so many stories, right?
Yes. I mean, the stories were just coming at us so fast. We'd be calling each other, you're never going to believe what somebody just told me today. And so we were like, everybody needs to hear these wonderful stories so that they know that this is a wonderful industry to be in construction as a female. It's not fun sometimes, right? but it's still wonderful. The money is great. You have a lot of freedom if you're a parent. Like I had a lot of freedom in my role, and I got to make my own schedule, which is really wonderful, especially if you're raising kids. So that's just a little about me.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's really amazing how you guys met. You guys are such great partners and such a good team. But I the key there is stories, right? Like you offer this platform for women and other. It's not just women, right? Who can share their stories and really engage. So Angela, tell us a little bit more about you and your journey and how you got here.
Okay. So I am a Greenvillian, and I'm a mom, and I have 2 kids, 17-year-old daughter and 22-year-old son. So I think that they provide me with a lot of feedback on the newer generation.
Yeah, I was going to say they're future Yo pros.
I say it all the time, but I love being a mom, but I think it's one of the more challenging things I've ever done. So moving into my professional life, I spent 30 years doing it. So this is the high point. I was reflecting on it last night. I entered the job market during a recession in the 90s. So then I had to find my place in that, and that was in my family business. And I worked there for 18 years, and I led it for 10, and I led it during a great recession, which pretty much hurt the construction industry the most. And then I lost my passion in it, and I needed to find something else because for me, challenge is a big part of my journey, and I want to feel needed and respected. And so, I was thinking last night, how could I show how that felt? Well, I know some of you are listening, but for me, it was like putting my hand over my eyes and like holding my hand out to figure out what did I want to do next. And so, I transitioned in from residential to commercial and industrial. And if you're in construction, that is that's 2 different
it's a hard
animals.
Transition sometimes.
But I knew how to connect with people. I knew how to get involved I had been involved in the community. And then several jobs later, I landed at a company that I love. And I want to just push a little bit of advice out there is that if you can find somewhere where they care about the people, they have a excellent reputation and your values align, then you're going to love your job. And I love my job at Hill Electric, and I love the people I get to work with. So,
and you do a great job of getting out in the community. I always share how in the intro, and I failed to do that today. I always share how I got connected to my guest. And so Angela and I, for those listening and watching, we actually do work together.
Yes,
so
I
Hill
love
Electric,
Camber.
wonderful company that I've really learned a lot from, and especially with the consulting work that I do. And of course, met Christy through Angela, and I'm just really excited to have you guys here today. So thank you for sharing a little bit more about your background. Now we're going to get into the topics that we wanted to discuss today, all about recruiting and retention, the younger generation coming up in the workforce. So let's just jump right in. Obviously, you're both in a field that is struggling to hire young talent. What can you tell us about the current trends that you're seeing in your field, just to set the stage for the conversation today?
Well, I think one of the things that has been really evident to me and to us as a company at 84 Lumber is employees are wanting less time at work and more time with their families. I think we can learn a lot from that in the next generation because my generation, I'm barely a boomer, but we were all about work, and I really struggle with workaholism. Like it's because that's how I was raised, right? And I think this next generation just wants to spend less time at work, and they want to have there's no such thing as balance, right? But they want to feel like they're there for their family, and I've learned a lot from them by watching that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've felt like our industry has been struggling since I've been in it. I mean, because the talent is moving out, and we weren't as innovative, but I think now we're a lot more innovative and we're attracting that talent. But the other thing that we struggle with is some of the skilled trade, you know, the schools are more focused on the educational piece of it, the academic, not so much the skilled trade part of it or hands-on work jobs. But now the career centers are entered the picture. And so what we're trying to do as industry is get in front of those kids and encourage them to look at a career center or look at that hands-on job. And that construction has really evolved. And it's not your, you know, get out in the dirt
anymore.
Right, exactly. So that's my spiel or take on our industry and the needs.
Well, one thing that I noticed from both of you with your answers is that you're curious about learning about the next generation. You know that you need to make a change in this industry, and so you're listening. You're going to you're being proactive and going to the career centers, and I think that's the piece that a lot of experienced generations don't necessarily see, and that's why there's these tensions in the workplace between these generations. And so I'm interested to learn more about I guess later on we're going to talk more about just how the retiring baby boomers and the exiting of the Gen Z and baby boomers, how that's going to impact the industry. But first, I do want to ask you guys a little bit more, walk us through what Women Talk Construction is about, walk us through Women Confidence Builders, and let everybody know how they can get involved in that.
So both were created to instill confidence in anyone that wants to do anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And Women Talk Construction is more focused on non-traditional career roles because most students don't see themselves in that role. So we've really focused that podcast on that. But it really is helpful for everyone to have confidence because when they listen to our podcast, I just got a testimony, was it yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
When they listen to our podcast, some of these folks that have been in the career for a long time are coming to tears because they don't feel alone anymore. You know, and that is
a sense of belonging, right?
Got chills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent the testimony to Angela. It's this is why we do what we do.
There it is. I wrote it down for you.
You did?
Yeah.
Aw. Yes. So cool. And we want to make sure that students see that we've done it. We're successful. And you can too. If you're interested, it doesn't mean we're pushing it on anyone, but we want to give people, Women Confidence Builders was built to help anybody do anything in any demographic, where you came from, how much money you make, none of that matters, right? We want to lift you up above us because you're way smarter than we are, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that, especially women in general. We just want to encourage that support system.
That's great to hear because something that I was going to share, and I know it wasn't on our list of items to talk about, but it is women lifting other women up.
Yeah.
I've experienced situations in my career thus far where I didn't feel like experienced women professionals were lifting me up. I want to be able to pay it forward one day and do that, but that's something that sometimes women do struggle with.
Do.
And so I don't know if you have anything to share about that, but I love that you guys
experienced that too,
you're
and
combating that.
Yeah, that's why we are doing this because we've experienced it, and you know the other key piece of this too is we're helping companies and others see how to attract the females and then actually retain the females.
Right.
And that's really in any profession. I mean, and females can do anything. They can not only work in construction, they can be on boards, they can
be in the C-suite.
Own companies. They can do it all. And all of those are non-traditional roles for women still. So,
well, we're in the South too. So just about everything is a non-traditional role for a girl. I mean, I said that at the last meeting we were at. It isn't a comfortable space yet here in the South. So
when will it be?
Hopefully faster than anybody can imagine because we're going to just keep working at it.
Awesome.
Right? All of
Good
us.
answer.
Yes.
Good answer. Well, thank you for what you're doing. And again, we'll make sure we link that to all of our listeners and watchers so they can hear your podcast. This is not your first rodeo on the podcast stage. All right, so we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but the young professional generations that we're talking about made up of, part of the Gen Z generation that are rising up in the workplace right now, and then majority millennials. They're going to make up 2/3 of the workforce by 2030. What does this mean for the trade professions, and will it impact them positively or negatively?
So we need to focus, and what a lot of people are doing right now, we need to focus on highlighting the awesome benefits of being in a trade and being a trade professional. I think the blue collar type comments, I think there's nothing wrong with that. However, it provides a stigma to the next generation. And I think we need to remove that if we can possibly get that removed. But there's a lot of people working really hard. We're working really hard together. And the work we need to do to erase that stigma together so we can build a better workforce.
Yeah.
If we don't, these kids aren't going to see why they might want to be building the future, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, beat the stigma like that.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, I love the positive energy from this, any of the workforces that come in. I mean, any of the ages, and they bring just a different perspective. And I love that they aren't going to settle for the status quo, and that they're going to leave if you don't treat them well, or you know, your culture isn't there. And I think that's another thing that Christy and I agree on, that our industry, or the construction, hasn't always valued that, maybe.
Right.
And they're going to have to think differently and treat their people differently. So that's how I see the next generation. And I mean, I think it's wonderful.
And just a tip, these young folks really want people to help them grow professionally and personally.
Mentorship is huge, and it should be
It's a
huge.
huge benefit for the younger kids. I would have never thought of needing that when I was younger, right? But these kids
We probably got it and didn't realize it.
Yeah, we
I mean, I know I did.
We did. I did too. And then sometimes I didn't, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
these kids are craving it. They're craving the professional and the personal growth piece that we can, with all of our experience and all the things we've done wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how we learn.
Right.
We can make it easier for them, right? And they're craving it.
Yeah, well, mentorship, you know, we've had several episodes of this podcast just on mentoring because it's so important to the
Yes.
younger generation. So I'm glad you guys mentioned that. And it kind of goes into my next question, which is about what do these young professionals want? You know, most of the listeners and watchers of this podcast are business leaders in the community who are trying to figure out ways to keep these young people happy and obviously to attract them.
Yes.
So from your perspective in your industry, what are those things other than a mentoring opportunity? What are some other areas?
So I think one of the first things that you need to do when you're talking to somebody that you don't know very well and you're just trying to get is make a connection, right? And that personal connection is going to open the door for a lot of things. Listening to their individual needs is huge, especially when it comes to females. Males, I don't know as much what they need, but I'm assuming, you know, there are men out there that want to spend more time with their family, or they want to, you know, teach t-ball, right, while their kids are growing up. Whatever the case may be, I think that meeting the needs of each individual when you bring them in is probably the biggest asset that you can do for your own organization.
Great point. That's something that most of the young professionals I've interviewed over the years have said, that they left a company because their individual needs were not being met.
Right.
So literally to a T is why they're leaving.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's
Anything
just
from your side?
communication and listening. Throughout my career, and when I've had that wonderful opportunity to lead, I mean, it's all the same thing. It's just in a different way. It's communication. It's developing your team. It's allowing them to get involved, and that could be through the community. It could be however they want to do it. And so that's
And
what
they
I
do
see.
seem to like the community,
Oh,
which
yeah.
it wasn't really pushed in my generation to
Really?
get out there and do a lot. But I'm from Indiana though, so you know it's a little different culture,
Yeah.
right? But it really wasn't pushed, and it's such a value to yourself personally and professionally to get involved in the community and serve.
Yeah.
Right? You never feel better than to help another person.
It's
And
the
that's
absolute
part
best.
of the culture at a company
Yes.
is if you offer those opportunities, are you giving a day where it's a flex day and you can go give back to the community? MLK Day is coming up. You know,
Yes.
is that a day where you encourage people on your team to go out and give back? Young professionals today don't remember a time when that wasn't an option.
Right.
So if companies aren't offering something like that, you're just automatically going to be starting behind.
Yes.
Since you both have worked with so many young professionals throughout the course of your careers, what are the key findings that you've learned about not necessarily what they want, because we've already talked a little bit more about what they want, but what are you seeing that they really need to be successful in the workplace? So is it, going a little bit deeper than what we've already talked about? What are those needs that are critical? If you're not offering it, they will leave.
Right. So I can tell you this from a years full of experience. I have a young lady that works for me named Alex, and we were having a really hard time just connecting, right, and communicating. And what I learned from that is that I had an unconscious bias of what I could learn from her. And that was wrong. I'm just going to be transparent here. And when I started realizing that she had a lot to bring, even though I had a lot to teach, there was a lot there to teach. It was more about, by the time we finally got it all together, I had to meet her where she was at, right? And communicating and understand her own goals, her personality, and how she learns. Because if I hadn't learned how she learns, I don't know that we could have stayed on the same team. It's truly how that worked out for us. But just recently, she came to me and mentioned, isn't it wonderful how it was so difficult and now it's so easy? So it was great to know that she was feeling that way as well.
Yeah.
But I really had to dig in deep, and it was a real struggle. But I can say now that the next time that happens, I'm prepared. Like, I understand better, and my walls are down, and I don't think everything my way is the best way.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times that was my challenge.
I'm going to revert back to just sharing that. I think for me, being a leader at a very young age in my career really helps me be a lot more open-minded with all generations. And a lot of it, too, is because my dad, he never, I had to work for what I got and work for every promotion. And then it was really hard. But I also got great feedback, and it helped me understand and look at everyone. And what I would say to this is, if you haven't improved your culture, you better do it. You better learn how to respect people and care about people. Communication's key, and mentoring is key. And, showing them that there are opportunities. And listening to them about where they want to go, because some of them don't always want to go to the top.
No.
They want to go in a different, they might want to try something else out in your company.
Yeah,
so those are my comments.
No, that's
Those are
really
great.
good. Alex and I had that conversation not long ago. I'm a very much a overachiever, but it's not fair for me to expect that out of her. So I sat
We're all
her down,
different, right?
and I said, hey, show me where you want to be. Right? So that I'm not giving you some kind of expectation that you can't meet. So she loved that I was willing to allow her to be where she wanted to be and not where I expected her to be. Right?
I mean, you're setting milestones. You're offering her the opportunity to be collaborative in that approach. And I think that's something I talk a lot about with business leaders. They just, everyone, the buzzword this year, right, or last year was quiet quitting.
Yeah.
That was exactly what we don't want, because it's nothing new in this industry or this workplace, but basically what that's saying is that everybody is just stopping short. They just don't want to do the job. And I think, Angela, to your point, not everybody wants to get to the top.
Yeah,
and so it doesn't mean they're quitting. It just means they're doing the exact things in their job description so that they can make it home in time for their kids' soccer practice or whatever it is. Those things matter to them. And so just kudos to both of you for recognizing that we all are different.
Yes.
But I'm going to throw a curveball question to you again. What would you say? I mean, because a lot of your peers and your generations are not this open-minded about the future generation.
Right.
And so what would you say to them? Because I'm willing to bet, people who are listening to this probably are pretty proactive, if I had to guess.
Yes.
But for those maybe who are still a little bit cautious about these young professionals entering the workforce, what would you say to them?
Just from my own experience, don't be closed-minded, right? Like, look at the value that somebody brings, because everybody brings value.
Yes. Exactly.
Everybody brings value. There's a value in every single person that you meet, and if you have that right attitude when you're working with somebody from the very beginning, like I said, bringing those walls down, having those conversations that aren't typically what you'd have at work, are going to make you grow. That, also they're going to feel heard, and there won't be quiet quitting, because back to communication again, right? How do you quiet quit when you know your boss so well? Right? Or you know your peers so well, or you know your colleagues so well. How do you quiet quit? You can't. Quiet quitting to me is somebody that's stuck on an island by themselves, right? So I think that is the key to, just those that aren't thinking outside the box, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Before we wrap things up, because I know we've had some really great conversation today, I want to touch on one very important question, which is, again, as we know that baby boomers, Gen Xers are exiting the workplace, where do you see the biggest challenge coming?
Well, I think if we don't keep doing what we're doing, which I think we're on a really good trend, we're not going to be able to build our future.
Right.
I mean, sadly.
And build is a key word here.
Build is the key word.
No pun intended.
Every place
Exactly.
I use that word for a lot of things, but it's mostly because I'm in construction and we build things, right? But if we don't let them see, everywhere you look, something is being built or renovated right now.
Yes.
And if we can't get the word out in a big way,
yes,
2030 is going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
Right. 8 years from now, a lot of people like me are going to want to retire, and we're not going to be able to. I think about that all the time. Am I going to be able to fully retire, or am I still going to be needed? She's still going to be needed if we don't take the individual responsibility to lift some other folks up. And that doesn't mean just girls and just boys and just young people.
It means everybody.
That can be somebody that's just a few years younger than me.
Yeah.
Teach them how to do what I'm doing and bring them into the company, explain how the culture works so that they can just fit right in and feel comfortable doing so.
Yeah. Well, I feel good knowing that y'all are doing what you're doing and reaching a lot of people in the process. So thank you for what you were both doing and how you've teamed up. I'd like to wrap things up, a little lightning round, which is always my favorite thing to do. I'd love to know if you guys can each just share a memorable experience that you've had working with a young professional. Now, you've already talked a little bit about Alex, but anything else that you want to share about your experiences working with either a specific young professional or a group of young professionals to wrap things up?
I'll let you go since I've been talking about Alex.
Alex got a great shout out.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give Raquel a shout out because she's my mentee and she's definitely in that age group. But I absolutely love her. I mean, I can't say enough great things about her. So there's really, I don't know, there's nothing the memorable things are every time I meet with her and she tells me things that she's doing. So for me, I do not see the next generation as lazy or,
no,
I
don't
all
either.
of those, I think you could see that in every generation,
right?
Laziness. But, and the other thing I want to say is, Camber, you've been a great help to me too, because a lot of times, I'm big on understanding how I need to communicate with whatever generation it is. And you helped me gear some questions around to some of the teammates who are already hard to get questions out of the construction group. But, and I just got one back this morning and he responded with, and he's a new person entering from the Career Center into electrical. And he said, at Hill Electric, I'm not one of 1,000 faces. They treat me differently than that.
Yeah.
I mean, how awesome is that?
That's really awesome.
Yes.
And for me, I have never looked at any generation. When I hire or look to bring people on my team, I look at not necessarily their experience, but their drive, their passion, their curiosity, their values. Yeah, and that they care about people and they'll be great on a team. That's what I look for, and I hope that others will do the same.
Yes.
So.
Well, and I can share one thing about that. I've been telling Alex from day one, you're going to be better than me.
Yay.
You're going to be better than me. And I can honestly say today that there are so many aspects of what she does on our team that's better than.
And she's so young, Gar.
She's 23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at that.
But see, how awesome to have a mentor, a boss
Yes.
like that who is engaging
Yes.
you
Yeah.
to be better than
Yes.
her. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen all the time.
No, it
So
doesn't.
again, thank you for what you guys are doing. I feel like that's a great way to wrap up kind of our main theme topics for the episode today. But is there anything else that we didn't cover today that you want to share before we end the episode?
I don't think so.
No, we covered a ton.
I think
We did. I know this was
we
so
did.
fun. This was, the first
Yes.
episode with 2 guests, and I think
for what you're
Yes,
doing
I think
for
it
the
topped.
workforce.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of synergy
Yeah.
with what we're doing. So
Yeah.
I'm super happy to have you both. Angela, Christy, thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for being on The Great Retention.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again for joining us on The Great Retention with Camber Parker, sponsored by the Prono. Before you go, remember this. Young professionals make up nearly half of the workforce today, and they're expected to jump at a rapid pace in this next decade. What will you do to help them become the next great leaders we need for the future? Join us next time for more information on how to recruit and retain young professionals. And if you enjoyed this episode, which I hope you did, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps others know where to find episodes about this topic. And don't forget to share with your coworkers. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.